Hello, hi, namaskar. My name is Dinesh Kapoor and I have started this channel primarily to assist you in understanding the intricacies of history in plain and simple words. In this series of lectures, I intend to give you facts and facts alone. If there is an input of any fiction or myth, I'd let you know. Today's subject is Kashmir. It's a very sensitive subject, and at the outset I would like to reiterate that I do not intend to give it any communal, religious, social or political tinge. It's plain statement of facts to let you know the origin of the problem that we are facing today, as is the custom in our lectures. In this series of lectures, it's going to be the facts and an attempt to find the origin and to give it a possible solution. There are two crucial months in the tale of Kashmir problem, September and October 1947. But before we reach there, I would like to give you a run-up to these 2 months. After the Second World War, the British, supposed to be the most powerful empire in the world, had gone bankrupt. The coffers were empty, and on this wintry, cold first day of 1947, January, the people did not even have enough water to shave or to fill the bottom of the wash basins. The government had changed, the Labour government had taken over, and the Prime Minister was Clement Attlee. To cut the long story short, Mountbatten was called and appointed the Viceroy of India. He was supposed to be the last Viceroy of India, and everybody knew he is there to hand over the power to Indian hands. There were many obstacles because the biggest stumbling block was Winston Churchill. He was one man who had always vetoed giving independence to India. He was of the firm opinion that India would fall into pieces if they were given administration in their own hands. Mountbatten apparently was reluctant to go because there were so many problems at that time in India. India was almost on the verge of a civil war. So he laid conditions like, I'll have my own plane, I'll have the final word in any decision, and etc., etc. We'll come to that. Everything was granted, and he arrived in India on 20th March 1947. The first thing that he did was to confer with the 4 or 5 prominent leaders of India at that time. They were Jawaharlal Nehru, Mahatma Gandhi, Vallabhbhai Patel, Muhammad Ali Jinnah and Baldev Singh Ji. In all, he had 6 meetings with them. The meetings were intended to assess one, the person he was meeting, as also the political situation, to understand it, grasp it firsthand. I'll give you an example, like when he met Vallabhbhai Patel, when he called him to Government House or the Viceroy's Palace or the President House today, he was presented by Mr. Patel a note which Mountbatten found offensive. So he asked him to withdraw the note. Mr. Patel was hesitant, and Mountbatten virtually threatened him that if he doesn't withdraw, I'll go back. To avoid these hassles, to avoid complications on his part, Mr. Patel decided, all right. After the meeting, they would go to the viceregal lawns for posing for the press. In the meeting with Jinnah, a very funny thing happened. Mr. Jinnah had presumed that when they go for the photo op, Lady Edwina Mountbatten would be placed in the middle, and they both, Mountbatten and Jinnah, would be on both sides. So he had memorized a phrase which said, a rose between two thorns. As it happened, he found himself in the middle, but the phrase still left his lips and he said, a rose between two thorns. It was quite funny. It was reported also. Anyway, so after the meetings, Mountbatten was convinced that speed was the essence and there should be a speedy transfer of power. 11 governors of Bombay, Madras, Punjab, Bengal, Sindh, Bihar, Odisha, Assam, etc. all reported that the situation was very grim and they were on the verge of a civil war. Similar impression was given by his two key advisors, Lord Ismay and Sir Eric Mevele. So this first impression prompted him to start the proceedings in a rather hurried manner. On May 2nd, he arrived, remember, he arrived on the 20th March. On May 2nd, it all starts. Ismay, his key advisor, flies to London with a plan for partition. The Brits decide that, yes, they would leave. 2nd June 1947, the deed for independence is prepared. Next day, on 3rd of June 1947, the most important announcement on this subcontinent was going to be made. The announcement of the century was going to be made by Nehru, Patel, Jinnah and Mountbatten. The announcement was going to be that the partition has been approved. Mahatma Gandhi did not join the brigade in this announcement. At 7 p.m. on 3rd of June, the announcement was made through All India Radio. Out of 400 million people, 88 million people were going to be affected by the decision of partition. Next day, Mountbatten gave a press conference. This was the second time a viceroy was giving a press conference. Prior to this, in the entire rule of the British, none except one had ever thought it necessary to tell people what was going on. This second press conference by Mountbatten was going to be a typical British press conference. The Brits were, and mostly till today, are known as the stiff-necked Brits. They would not budge from their decisions, and especially when you are ruling over a nation of slaves. How can a white man be wrong? This is from Mountbatten recollections. He said, as I counted my achievements in India, I threw open the floor for the journalists, for the reporters, and amongst many questions, one of the reporters asked, "Sir, if you have decided on the transfer, you must have decided also on a date of transfer. If yes, sir, what is it?" Mountbatten said, so many dates were whizzing around in my mind like a roulette wheel. Was it going to be Queen's birth anniversary, his wife's anniversary? And then the penny dropped. It was going to be the second anniversary of Japan's surrender, for which Mountbatten was responsible. 15th August. The most crucial date in the history of India was not taken by the Council of Ministers in consultation with leaders of India, but by the whim of a British. So many people protested. But as I told you, stiff-necked Brit. So 15th August it was. Although he relented, he said, all right, it will not be 15th of August, but the midnight of 14th August. Small mercies. Thank you. After the announcement of transfer of power was made on the 4th June, on 27th June, Sir Cyril Ratcliffe was called from England to dissect the Punjab. The Punjab boundary began in a trackless wood on the edge of Kashmir, where the western branch of a river called Uj entered the Punjab. Cyril Ratcliffe had never visited India, had no idea of its lands, and yet this was considered his qualification. For had he known princes, leaders, people, land, he would have probably been biased. So he was considered an ideal candidate. But when Cecil Ratcliffe came and saw the gigantic proportion of his task that was assigned to him, he knew it was a thankless job. Whatever he did, whichever way he went, it was going to affect people in a most miserable manner. But the job was job. And so he comes, and when he sees the boundaries, he decides to go by the majority population formula. Wherever, if there is a Muslim majority, it will go to Pakistan, and Hindu majority will come to India, and therefore Lahore went to Pakistan and Amritsar was in India. Although he was following the majority population principle, he made one controversial exception. He gave India this squalid little town of Gurdaspur. It was near the northern extremity of the Punjab. There, Cyril chose to follow the natural boundary caused by the river Ravi. Now, you will see from the map, from the Indian side of the Ravi river is Gurdaspur. It was Muslim majority, and the villages around were also mostly Muslims. It should have gone to Pakistan, but if he had included it like this, the river is going like this, Gurdaspur is here, if he had done it like this, it would have formed an enclave, an island protruding into India. So he inadvertently gave Gurdaspur to India. It was not this squalid, little, inconsequential, dirty town of Gurdaspur that India got. With it came the hope of claiming Kashmir, because that was the only land access to Srinagar, to Kashmir. Had Gurdaspur gone into Pakistan, we would have lost Kashmir, because there would be no access, no land access, and the Kashmir Maharaja Hari Singh would have had no other option other than to accede to Pakistan. Now, this was on 27 June that he came and got busy. Cyril Ratcliffe got busy in his task. Early next month, in July, Mountbatten was appointed the first Governor General of India. It was a curious decision, but it was necessary probably. In fact, the idea had been mooted by Jinnah. Jinnah wanted Mountbatten to stay after 15th August so that India did not play any hanky-panky while dividing the assets, lands, etc. When Jinnah was asked that you should also appoint him as the Governor General of Pakistan, Jinnah said no. Very firmly he told Mountbatten, in my country I'll be the Governor General and the Prime Minister will do what I tell him to do. The improbable prophet of Pakistan drank ate pork, never entered a mosque, and lived even in this hot, humid country a British style of life, wearing three-piece suits, tuxedos whenever he came in public. And yet won 90 million Muslims estate by his sheer iron will. In British India, there were 565 small and bigger states. In one of the clauses in the partition plan, it had been suggested to the British Parliament, and they said that all the states were free and they could choose their own destiny. They could either be independent or merge with India or merge with Pakistan. This was the most alarming situation. Vallabhbhai Patel realized the enormity of the problem. If they were allowed this sort of freedom, India will probably have hundreds of countries. It will be divided in hundreds of countries. The whole exercise, the whole sacrifices of the people in gaining independence would be over. India's independence will hold no meaning. If it was not for Vallabhbhai Patel, the integration of these fragmented states, 565, into a unified India would not have been possible. Vallabhbhai Patel in this regard was a genius. Now, Vallabhbhai Patel realized that Mountbatten had very good relations with the princes, nawabs, rulers of these provinces, these states. So he approached Mountbatten, since he was the Governor General, and they both discussed this problem. Even in the enormity of the problem, they were referring to the states as apples and were trying probably to make light of a very grim situation by referring the states as apples. Like Vallabhbhai Patel says, Mr. Lord Louis Mountbatten, I want all the 565 apples in my basket. Mountbatten says, no, it's too many. I'll give you 550. No, Patel says, let's make it 560. I mean, they were bargaining like apple dealers, but both knew that they were on the Indian side. Mountbatten held many meetings with princes, as you can see in this photograph, and could manage to bring almost every state into India except 3 or 4 states. Junagadh, Hyderabad and Kashmir refused to merge with India. In July, as Governor General of India, Mountbatten decided to go to Kashmir to force the Maharaja's hand into annexing Kashmir into India. Maharaja Hari Singh was his friend. In fact, Maharaja Hari Singh had a weakness for women, and in the Britain's penny press, the readers knew him as Mr. A. Mountbatten tried to persuade Maharaja Hari Singh. He told him that he cannot be independent because Maharaja Hari Singh neither wanted to go to Pakistan nor to India. He wanted to be an independent country. Mountbatten explained, it is not possible. Yours is a landlocked state. You are surrounded by Tibet, China, Pakistan and India. And if you do not take a decision, one day Kashmir is going to be battlefield. You will be responsible for the tug of war between India and Pakistan. No, Maharaja Hari Singh won't budge. After 3 days of persuasion, finally Maharaja relented and told Mountbatten, all right, tomorrow I'll sign the instrument of accession. At the appointed time next day, Mountbatten waited in the hall, but only a message came saying that The Maharaja was down with tummy ache, stomach ache. Everybody knew it was a fake thing. He was feigning a stomach ache. Sadly, this stomach ache was going to cause a lot of headache for India and for Pakistan. Now independence happened. The British officers had still not left India. The administration had not completely left India. Very revealing incident for Mr. Jinnah happened on 24th August, the Friday, 1947. Muhammad Ali Jinnah instructed his British military secretary, Colonel William Burney, to go to Kashmir and arrange a 2-week holiday for him. There was a big secret about Jinnah. If it had revealed itself, probably would have changed the destiny of India and Pakistan. Probably there would be no partition. Probably we would not be in a mess today like we are. Probably India would be like the pre-partition India, where Hindus and Muslims would live in harmony. That secret was that he had TB, tuberculosis. It was the most closely guarded secret of Jinnah. Had it been revealed that he was only going to survive for a few months, it would have changed many things on political and social fronts. For Jinnah, it was unthinkable that with 70% of population, Muslim population in Kashmir, Kashmir could be anywhere else other than in Pakistan. 5 days later, the military secretary, Colonel William Burney, came back. The news staggered Jinnah. He was told that Hari Singh did not want him, Jinnah, to put his foot on his soil even as a tourist. This was absolutely unacceptable. 48 hours later, Jinnah appointed a secret agent to go into Kashmir and assess the situation and Maharaja's real intentions. The report was even more baffling. Maharaja did not want to annex to Pakistan. He did not want Kashmir to go into Pakistan. Now this was not acceptable to Jinnah, that the Maharaja of Kashmir will not let him put his feet on his soil. So in mid-September, Liaquat Ali Khan, the Prime Minister, convened a secret meeting of collaborators in Lahore to decide how to force the Maharaja's hand. The suggestion that there can be an outright invasion of Kashmir was ruled out because that would mean that India would get involved and Pakistan was not ready for a direct confrontation at this stage. 2 more plans were mooted. The first was articulated by Colonel Akbar Khan, a Sandhurst graduate with a penchant for conspiracy. He suggested that the Pakistan should supply arms and money to the dissenting Muslims in Kashmir and stir an uprising, create problems. In about 3 to 4 months, at least 40 to 50,000 Muslims would descend on the capital, Srinagar, and force Maharaja to accede to Pakistan. The second proposal was more interesting and intriguing. It involved the most ferocious tribe of the Northwest. The idea was sponsored by the Chief Minister of the frontier province. Now, this unruly lot had always been a problem for the British, and Pakistan had now inherited it. The loyalty of these Pathan tribesmen to Karachi was not to be taken for granted. Britain's last governor of the province, Sir Olaf Carew, had predicted that the king of Afghanistan will seek the support from this tribe to expand
his kingdom to Peshawar and till the banks of the river Indus. Now, sending these dangerous hordes to Srinagar was a very attractive idea. It would be like they would go there, capture Srinagar, and without even firing a shot, would invade Maharaja's capital and his palace and force him to join Pakistan. Also, if Liaquat Ali Khan provided these tribesmen an opportunity to loot the bazaars of Kashmir, it would keep their attention away from the bazaars of Peshawar. Jinnah approved the plan and gave strict orders to keep it a complete secret from officers of Pakistan Army, her civil servants, and especially the British. The British officers and administrators were not to be given the slightest hint of this operation. Finance, Jinnah said, would be provided from my office. 3 days later, in the basement of a ramshackle building in the walled city of Peshawar, these tribesmen gathered to choose their leader. It was the most unlikely man who they chose as their leader. Major Khurshid Anwar was a very hot-blooded, fickle character man who had the expertise in disguising himself in various avatars. His military career in the Indian Army had ended because he had messed up with the funds relating to the mess. Now, these tall tribal leaders with their flowing beards and their flowing clothes, they look like the warriors of Saul, the king of the land of Israel, and David, the man who, the future king of Israel who fought Goliath. Khurshid was talking about jihad, loyalty to their Muslim brethren in Karachi and Pakistan, the distressed situation in Kashmir and the Muslim Kashmiris. The only thing that appealed to them was that in the process they would pillage and rape. After this was approved by the tribesmen because of the fond hope of money and women, within 3 hours, the compound walls in their villages, the Khyber in Landli Kotal, in the hidden ghettos where for ages they manufactured their rifles, in the storerooms of the smugglers' caravans, the Pathans passed the call for the holy war, so-called jihad. From bazaar to bazaar, the word spread and the people started assembling at a particular point to proceed next day to Srinagar. The plan had been made. Now, Sir George Cunningham, he was the governor of the Northwest Frontier province in Peshawar, and he somehow got suspicious. He decided to call Lieutenant General Sir Frank Meserve, the commander-in-chief of the Pakistan Army. Both were British and French, of course. And in their own military language, he said, "I say, old boy, I have the impression that something strange is going on here." He explained how the trucks crowded with tribesmen chanting Allahu Akbar were pouring in Peshawar. His own chief minister, he said, seemed to be the man rousing up the Pathans. So he asked Meserve, "Are you sure that the Pakistani government is still opposed to the tribal invasion of Kashmir?" Now, in a very clever move, Meserve had been asked to go to London. The idea was that when this mission, Kashmir, was being operated, this man who could be an impediment to their plans was 6,000 miles away, buying arms to replace those India had failed to deliver. Well, Meserve told Sir George Cunningham that the Prime Minister Liaquat Ali Khan has given his personal assurance that there is not going to be any tribal invasion. He said, you still have a word with Liaquat Ali, George Cunningham said to Meserve. So on his way to the airport, he called on Liaquat Ali Khan and asked him the details, etc., and his fears. As serene as a Buddha, Liaquat Ali Khan told him that his fears were baseless. There was nothing like that. And he would immediately order the Chief Minister of the province to stop this outrageous action. So Meserve was assured. He flew to London to buy arms that would fuel the conflict which would arise in his absence. If that pretended fake stomachache of Maharaja Hari Singh was going to be a seed sown for the conflict of India and Pakistan, here was the culmination. We now come to the most crucial week in the history of Kashmir, in the story of the genesis of the Kashmir problem, the last week of October. On the evening of 22nd October 1947, the preparations for the tribal invasion had been completed, and their leader, Sarab Khayat Khan, a nervous 23-year-old man of the Muslim League's green shirts, stood waiting in his Ford station wagon for a signal from beyond the bridge on the river Jhelum. Behind Sarab Khayat, there was a convoy of trucks filled with the Pathans. As soon as the signal came, it was a flare of light coming in an arc form beyond the bridge. It conveyed to them that the Hindu officers of the Maharaja had been killed and Hari Singh's army had mutinied. They had cut the telephone lines to Srinagar and seized the guard. Sarab signaled to the convoy of trucks behind him, and he lurched himself in that wagon car across the bridge. The war for Kashmir had begun.
My name is Jagannath Das. I have been working as a correspondent and development analyst in Jammu and Kashmir for 4 years, in Pakistan, in Delhi, in Washington. Currently, I am working as editor of Kosher Samachar. I have had the opportunity of interviewing Mr. Muhammad Ali Jinnah in Kashmir in 1944. I have discussed the matter occasionally, time to time, with Nehru and Sheikh Mohammed Abdullah. I was on friendly terms with Sheikh Mohammed Abdullah. He liked my Kashmiri. I could speak better Kashmiri than he could because I was from a village and he was from a city. So he used to take me occasionally to Dal Lake in a boat, and there he was a good swimmer, and I also was number 2 after him. We used to swim together and then go near Char Chinar in Dal Lake. After that, have a Kashmiri kahwa and move in the boat in that area.
Do you think that tribal invasion of Kashmir by Jinnah triggered the Kashmir problem?
Yes. Jinnah was mainly responsible for this. He had signed a still agreement with the Maharaja of Jammu and Kashmir, which India had not accepted, but Jinnah had accepted. He broke it and sent his troops to Kashmir because he thought he would be able to take Kashmir by force. As a matter of fact, Sheikh Abdullah was trying very hard that he could find some solution. He sent his confidants, Bakshi Ghulam Ahmad and Sadiq to talk to Jinnah. Jinnah refused to speak to them for 3 days. Then Jinnah's secretary, Khurshid, sought an appointment and he met those two people. When they came to his room, they told him that Sheikh Abdullah is ready to help Jinnah in making Jammu and Kashmir accede to Pakistan, provided Jinnah accepted that they would accede to 3 subjects: finance, defense and foreign affairs. Jinnah shouted at them, telling them, "Tell that long fellow, Jammu and Kashmir is in my pocket." He derided Sheikh Abdullah and would never call his name. He used to call Sheikh Abdullah a tall fellow only.
The caravan of these mercenaries led by Sarab went unopposed till the small town of Muzaffarabad. And when they reached Muzaffarabad, Sarab Khan was beyond the stars. He saw in front of him 135 miles of paved, unguarded promenade lay before him, which they could cover and reach Srinagar airport before daybreak. And then they would overwhelm Hari Singh's sleeping army. They would create havoc among the citizens. They would invade his palace and force him to sign the act of accession in the name of Pakistan. But Jinnah, his prime minister, and Sarab, while making this sinister plan, had forgotten one thing: Pathan's frenzy for loot, murder and rape. As Sarab turned back to give an order for his men to march, to his horror, he found no man around. They had all disappeared into the night for their nocturnal excursion into the bazaars of Muzaffarabad. In an interview later, Sarab would recall, and I quote him, "It was every man for himself. The tribesmen shot off locks, smashed in doors, and ripped out anything of value. I and my officers had to go and literally tug at their robes in an effort to pull them from their wicked occupation. We tried to tell them that we had come to invade Srinagar. It all fell on deaf ears." Unquote. Because of this, Muhammad Ali Jinnah would never again visit the Vale of Kashmir. Srinagar was not going to belong to these Pathans on that night of 22nd October 1947. It would take 48 hours for these tribespeople to cover the next 75 miles before another more alluring and unfortunate divine intervention came their way. The first news of Kashmir invasion reached New Delhi not from the despairing Maharaja, but from a channel that was miraculous. Along the principal highway of the Punjab's exodus, above the road where for 8 weeks the wretched millions had fled, suspended from the poles on which the bloated vultures still perched, was a telephone line linking India and Pakistan. It was no less than a miracle for that line to have remained functional in the wake of the turmoil that the area had seen in the last 2 to 3 months. From that line, a call was made from Rawalpindi, number was 1704, to another number in New Delhi, 3017. Both these were the private numbers of the commanders-in-chief of the Pakistani and Indian armies. They were British friends and former comrades in the old Indian army. On Friday, the 24th October around 5 p.m., Major General Douglas Gracie, who had replaced General Messervy, remember Messervy who had been sent to England? He got a secret report telling him what had transpired in Kashmir and the number of troops, raiders, armaments, etc. Now, he in turn informed the Commander-in-Chief of the Indian Army, Lieutenant General Sir Robert Lockhart. He was a classmate of Gracie. In turn, Lockhart communicated this surreptitious secret to the Governor General Lord Mountbatten and Field Marshal Auchinleck. These were the people that Jinnah would have never wanted the information to reach. So far, the information had not been shared with any Indian. Only the Britishers got to know of these developments, and this attitude would earn them severe disapproval by their respective governments. Mountbatten received the news as he was attending a banquet in honor of Thailand's foreign minister. When banquet finished, the last guest went, he called Nehru aside and told him about this situation, and Nehru was livid with anger because he loved Kashmir. One day he would tell Mountbatten, just as Kailash was written upon the heart of your Queen Mary, so is Kashmir on ours. Now, the first concern of Field Marshal Auchinleck was to airlift the British populace in the valley and to reach them at a safe place. But Mountbatten vetoed it. He said, I will not send British soldiers on the soil of a subcontinent become independent. Now, he said that if there has to be a military intervention, it had to be by Indian forces. So the following afternoon, a Royal Indian Air Force plane DC-3 was sent to Srinagar. It carried VP Menon, Sam Manekshaw, and an Indian Army officer. It landed on a rather deserted airstrip in Srinagar. Menon was there to talk to Maharaja about the terms of accession, and the other two were there to assess the military situation. This had happened because earlier in the morning, the Maharaja had pleaded and sent a plea to Delhi to save him. Defense Committee first recommended military intervention, but Mountbatten vetoed it. He said that India should not send her troops into Kashmir until the Maharaja officially acceded his state into India. Now, another thing happened. Mountbatten persuaded Nehru to include a principal clause in the Kashmir's accession. The clause said that this was all temporary and that when the law and order situation became normal, a plebiscite would be held, and based on that plebiscite, it would be decided whether Kashmir has to go to Pakistan or India. In a note on the 7th November, about 2 weeks later, he wrote back home in England that he was sure that with 70% of Muslims in Kashmir, they would opt only for Pakistan. Shortly before midnight on Saturday, 26 October, on the advice of VP Menon, the Maharaja of Kashmir abandoned his city and fled to his Jammu palace. He was also a refugee, but he was a royal refugee. He went into a caravan of cars with all his jewels and treasures along, not like the wretched millions who were displaced. When he reached there at his Jammu palace, before retiring, he told his ADC that if VP Menon does not come to his aid by next morning, shoot him in his sleep. VP Menon reported back in Delhi that the Maharaja was ready to present Kashmir to India, but the Pathan raiders were only 35 miles away from Srinagar and could seize the airport at any time. Well, the British commanders were unsupportive of the military intervention, but Mountbatten again overruled them. He ordered to start flying troops to Srinagar at dawn the following morning, which meant that the Maharaja would live. The aid had reached. And the orders for the Air Force soldiers were to keep hold of the airport till the aid from the land arrived through the only access that Sir Cyril Ratcliffe Knife had provided them, Gurdaspur. As the war preparations began, VP Menon flew to Jammu again on Sunday 26 October with Act of Accession for the Maharaja to sign. And then he returned the same evening, and Alexander Simon, Britain's Deputy High Commissioner, joined him for a drink a few minutes later. Menon was ecstatic. He poured a stiff drink for himself and for Simon, took out the accession paper, waved it in the air and told him, the bastard signed this act of accession, and now that we have Kashmir, we'll never let it go. 329 Sikhs of the 1st Regiment and 8 tons of material landed at a miraculously empty Srinagar airport at dawn, Monday, 27 October, flown by 9 DC-3s. Now, this was the first installment to fight. Later on, nearly 100,000 Indian soldiers would fight on those snowy tops, which were a paradise. It would be a slow transformation of a paradise turning into hell. Another divine intervention happened, but it was as sad and tragic as it was fortunate. When these Pathans paused to sack a convent in the city of Baramulla, which is only 30 miles away from Srinagar, when they should be marching on to seize the Srinagar airport, they indulged themselves in their age-old frenzy for loot, rape and murder. In the convent, they found 14 French, Scottish, Spanish, Italian and Portuguese nuns. Nuns of the Franciscan Missionaries of Mary hiding in the convent. All day, Monday 27 October, when the Indian soldiers were landing at the Srinagar airport, these Pathans at Baramulla were giving vent to their appetites for rape and pillage. They violated the nuns, massacred the patients, and looted the convent chapel. The sacrifice of the convent's Belgian Mother Superior, Sister Mary Adultrude, and that of their sister nuns will not shake the hold of Islam in Kashmir, but would certainly give enough time for the soldiers of Nehru to land at Srinagar airport before these Pathans could. This was very sad, but it helped India. By the time the Pathans reached there, it was too late. The Pathans were no match to the disciplined Air Force. A seething Jinnah defied his British commanders and sent Pakistani units disguised as irregulars to Kashmir to stiffen his demoralized raiders. And for months, the war would rage on. Against the advice and warnings of his cabinet colleagues, Nehru called out to United Nations. Once there, the dispute would take its place alongside Berlin, Palestine, and Korea in the gallery of the world's unsolved problems. The plebiscite would take a backseat and the state would remain divided along the battle lines of 1948. The Whale of Kashmir in Indian hands, the northern territories with Pakistan, and this would remain the principal subject of discord between India and Pakistan. Now I am touching a very sensitive subject, that of plebiscite. Again, I am asserting that I am just giving you the dates and the facts. On 30th September, Nehru proposed using plebiscite as a means of settling disputes regarding princely states. It is discussed in the Indian cabinet and communicated to Pakistani Prime Minister Liaquat Ali Khan, who happened to be in Delhi at that time. Khan's face lit up, but he said nothing. On October 22nd, 1947, the day on which I dwelt at length, Pakistan, as I told you, violated the standstill agreement by sending those tribes people, and it tilted the balance and whatever peace there was.
Jinnah was responsible for plebiscite not to happen because he did not believe in these things. By nature, he was not a Democrat. Nehru, a follower of British type of democracy, was very clear in his mind that he should provide an opportunity to people of Jammu and Kashmir to have plebiscite. Jinnah was opposed to it. He did not believe in plebiscite and such things. He was not a Democrat, he was an autocrat. Because he had taken a lot of pains in supplying arms to tribals and sending them to Jammu and Kashmir, because he was expecting that he would be able to take it there. But those tribals, when they reached Kashmir, they started enjoying life, especially nightlife in that area, and they forgot what Jinnah had asked them to do, and he lost because of that. By nature, he was an autocrat. Sheikh Abdullah was not so much in favor of plebiscite as Nehru was. But he created such a condition, Jinnah, that he could not implement the first part of the United Nations resolution about Jammu and Kashmir, which said that Pakistan troops must come out because Jammu and Kashmir, once Hari Singh had acceded to India, it had become a part of this state. So Pakistan troops were not expected to remain there. But Jinnah was not expecting that he would withdraw them, because he had sent them and he had thought he had conquered the territory. He believed in conquer. So, but he was clear in his mind when on October 27 Indian forces landed there. He told Pakistanis that they will not come out now, because there is no instance in human history where when an army has gone inside, it has come back. So this resolution could not be implemented and plebiscite could not take place.
On 1st of November, Lord Mountbatten and Muhammad Ali Jinnah meet in Lahore as Governor Generals of India and Pakistan. Mountbatten offered India's proposal that the accession of Junagadh, Hyderabad and Kashmir should be decided by an impartial reference to the will of the people in the form of a plebiscite. Jinnah rejects the offer. January 5, 1949, almost a year after Nehru's offer of plebiscite, the UNCIP passes a resolution that states that the question of accession of the state of Jammu and Kashmir to India or Pakistan will be decided through the democratic method of free and impartial plebiscite. However, for that, Pakistan had to withdraw all his forces from the state, which it did not do.
From United Nations.
Another British officer, Dixon, arrived in the subcontinent in May 1950, visited Kashmir, and proposed a summit between India and Pakistan. The summit lasted 5 days, at the end of which Dixon declared that a plebiscite was impossible under Sheikh Abdullah's regime. He said that he was still willing to discuss direct with the government of Pakistan a solution involving partition with plebiscite in the valley. But for reasons unexplained, Dixon suddenly withdrew himself. He perhaps did not know how close he had come to solving the dispute, but he withdrew. Now Nehru decided that a settlement must be found, since India could not hold Kashmir on the point of a bayonet. He asserted several times since 1947 that only Kashmiris have the right to decide their future. Starting in July 1953, he made a renewed push on the plebiscite option in discussions with Pakistan. In August 1953, he proposed that a plebiscite administrator be appointed within 6 months. His only condition was that no major power should be made judges or supervisors. Reversing his earlier policies, he suggested that the plebiscite could be held in all regions of Kashmir. The reason for withdrawing from this plebiscite offer was because Nehru had become disillusioned with Pakistan's venom and enmity attitude towards India. It indulged in hostile actions, Pakistan, and in the strong mood of jihad, neurotic mood, and its inability to formally agree to a plebiscite for 2 months after the offer was made. It adopted the policy of threat and bullying, and Nehru thought that appeasement only leads to more bullying. Appeasement on the Indian part leads to more bullying on the part of Pakistan. Now another twist came in this tale. Pakistan, by using the opening created by Korean War, started pursuing for military aid from America. 2 days after Liaquat Ali Khan's assassination, Pakistani military delegation was in Washington to get as much military aid as possible. Now, it said that we want the aid irrespective of whether you defend us against India's aggression or not. And we are also, they said, the Pakistani military delegation said, we are also ready to participate in defending the Middle East. Now, Nehru warned them that you have a choice. You either go for the US-Pakistan Mutual Defense Pact that they were pursuing, or choose Kashmir through a plebiscite. The Pakistan pursued the Mutual Defense Pact with America, and so the plebiscite offer was withdrawn. I've spoken at length and for long, and so if my voice is a bit hoarse, please forgive me. I hope that you have learned something from it. If you like this tale, this episode, this story of Kashmir's problem, then kindly share, subscribe, or write to us on this mail about your views on it. Thank you very much. I, Dinesh Kapoor, now take your leave. Thank you.